Joining me now is the mayor of Antioch, Lamar Thorpe. Thank you for joining me today, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, thank you for having me, Reverend.
Mayor, dozens of community members have said they've lost trust in the Antioch Police Department and are demanding accountability. First, can I start by getting your reaction to the lawsuit that was filed this week, and where do you see it going?
Well, it's an unfortunate situation that the city finds itself in. In terms of the lawsuit, obviously, we're going to be briefed in closed session on Tuesday about this, so I'm not going to talk specifically about that. I can only express that I understand the challenges we're going through, and I understand the lawsuits that we're going to face. And I warned about this a few weeks ago when I first announced that we were putting several officers on administrative leave as a result of these text messages. So we'll deal with the lawsuit as we move forward.
Now, the language used in these text messages between law enforcement is highly racist and alarming to me. Some of these messages include the use of the N-word and sharing pictures of gorillas in reference to black people, just to name a few examples. And this is happening in one of the most racially diverse cities in the Bay Area. How do you foresee handling this cultural problem in your police department?
You're absolutely right. We are one of the most racially diverse cities in the Bay Area, so there's absolutely no room for what we've discovered. We keep using the phrase racial animus, but that's just a very pretty word to say that these are racist. We're dealing with racist. And so we'll continue to deal with this situation. In terms of how we move forward, the city council earlier this week passed my proposals to initiate an audit of internal investigations to look back as far as 8 years to determine what types of complaints we've had and what their adjudication was. And more importantly, for those investigations that lapsed their 1 year statute of limitations, we need to understand why they lapsed and how people were held accountable. Second, our equity audit to start looking at patterns and practices of the police department. And third, an extensive review of our hiring and internal promotions processes. So those are the three things that I've outlined that we will move forward on. But you know what? I've been talking about police reform since I ran for mayor in 2020. For the last 2 years, my colleagues and I have been attacked as a result of launching the city's most extensive and largest police reform measures in its history. But here we find ourselves today dealing with the absolute worst. And the sad reality is that we haven't even gotten to the part of the FBI investigation. This is just a small component of the larger FBI investigation.
Now, Mr. Mayor, in my capacity as president of National Action Network, I called on Attorney General Merrick Garland and the Department of Justice to immediately investigate these text messages. I also called on the DOJ to ensure safety for you, because you've also been a target in these messages and have since been receiving death threats and calls. Can you talk a little about that, a little bit more about that and what you've had to face?
Well, right. In the last really week or so, I've been receiving lots of threats, whether it's through my personal cell phone. Somebody published it online. I don't know who. My home phone number. And obviously the email communications and all social media. But, I want to point out that for the last 2 years, I've been receiving threats for the last 2 years. There's a council colleague of mine, Tamisha Torres Walker, who has personal security as a result of some of the threats that she has received. And it hasn't stopped. And so I've been attacked physically after I gave a speech at a Chamber of Commerce luncheon, and the police department did not take it serious. They said it was his word against my word, or vice versa. And now that I've seen these
you were physically attacked, and the police department said it's your word as mayor against somebody else?
I don't know in what world that is a reality, but here in the city of Antioch, it was an absolute reality. Anywhere else, the individual would have been arrested. And here I am fending for myself. And so it's been absolutely ridiculous. I've had security for the 4th of July parade. I've had security for large events, for my press conferences that I hold. We constantly have security because nobody takes our concern serious. And that's just the way it's been for African Americans when we exercise our right to not only free speech, but to participate in the democratic process as elected officials.
Mayor, I want your opinion on one more case. This week, the governor of Oklahoma called on 4 county officials to resign. One of them, a county commissioner, already has. This is after an Oklahoma newspaper released recordings of them discussing killing journalists and lynching black people. The other 3 law enforcement officials, a county sheriff, a sheriff's captain, and a county jail administrator, have yet to resign, but they've been suspended by Oklahoma Sheriff's Association. The state's now investigating the matter. While the FBI has neither confirmed nor denied a federal investigation, what's your takeaway here? What you're facing there in Antioch, what happened in Oklahoma, Mayor Thorpe? These are law enforcement people, and they wonder why we protest and deal with situations when they happen. What's your reaction as one leading a city?
Well, I mean, this is a backlash to 2020. The reality is a lot of us as African Americans finally stood up and said, we no longer have to explain ourselves when it comes to racism. If you don't get it, you're the problem. And what we're seeing is a backlash as a result of 2020, when the world, and not just the country, but the world said enough is enough with the challenges between law enforcement and the African American community, and for every minority community in this country. And so when I see these things pop up throughout our country, it's no surprise to me, because there are just angry right-wing MAGA type Republicans out there who have no regard or no respect for the fact that our country has a history of racism. And, they don't like talking about it. They don't like pointing it out. And when you do, they just get so violently offended at the fact that you would even point out that there is racism occurring at your local police department.
Mayor Lamar Thorpe, thank you for being with us tonight. We're going to keep our eye on Antioch.